Hey guys, this is the first episode of Kingly Endeavors, in which I intend to be reading every single one of Stephen King's novels in chronological order and hopefully posting a video a week about it. So this week I'm doing Carrie, which was King's first published novel, but it wasn't the first novel he ever wrote, which is going to play a part in this later on. The summary for Carrie is difficult because it's in the same way that the summary for The Shining might be difficult or other of King's more famous books. It's really old, it's really famous, and Carrie was just remade like 2 years ago. But the image of the teenage girl drenched in pig's blood on prom night on stage was such a memorable image, it seems to have just sort of been ingrained in like American cultural whatever. But what's interesting about the book and what I'd forgotten is that for the first, the book is very slim. It's only about 250 pages. And for about the first 150 pages, you really don't know where it's going. Now it's hard to conceive of watching the movie Carrie or reading the book Carrie without knowing exactly where things are going to end up. But I imagine that somebody reading this when it came out in 1974 would really have been on the edge of their seat. Because not only is Carrie a good book and a really good horror novel, but as a debut horror novel, it's pretty much perfect. It's slim, it's propulsive, it's violent, it's engaging. I'm sure this came out with kind of like a pulpy status in the mid-70s, but if there were serious reviews of it, I'd really like to go back and check them out and see if Stephen King was welcomed as warmly as I think the book would merit for a debut author. But yeah, so for those of you who don't know, the book is about a girl named Carrie White, and she's, I think, 16 or 17. The book opens with her getting her first period in a locker room after PE class, which at 16, I don't know if that's belated or not, but I think the implication in the book is that like she's the last girl in her grade to have gotten her period. I don't know if this is a thing. Okay, so I'm a guy reading this book, and obviously I'm running up against a limitation there, because of all the girls that I've ever known who have told me about, like, the first time they got their period, which for some reason feels like it's been very many. I think almost all of them have said that they got it later than all of their friends, that all of their friends had gotten their period by the time they got their period, and they got it belatedly at the age of 14, 15, 16. And so I'm wondering, is it, like, do girls lie about this shit? Like, yeah, I'm so cool, I'm so mature, I got my period, when I was 9 or something. I don't know. Anyways, I wasn't in that scene, so let me know in the comments. Anyways, so Carrie's embarrassed. Her mother, nobody has ever told her, apparently, what menstruation is, and so she's freaking out. She thinks she's bleeding to death, and while she thinks that she's bleeding to death, all the other girls in the showers in the girls' locker room are throwing tampons at her and saying, plug it up, plug it up, plug it up. So it's this really memorable, traumatizing scene, and Carrie is sent home early, and you meet her mom, who's psychotically religious, locks Carrie in closets and makes her pray for hours on end. But anyways, one thing leads to another. We get a really, really comprehensive idea of just how alienated and lonely Carrie is. And then about halfway through the book, one of the cool guys in the school is influenced by his girlfriend to take Carrie to the prom. I'd forgotten this part too. He really does have genuine intentions in taking Carrie to the prom. Girlfriend Sue is the one who feels bad about having participated in the plug it up, and throwing the tampons at Carrie. And so he decides that, I'll be her date for the prom, give her a good time, whatever. But of course, things go wrong. I won't spoil it for the very few of you who probably don't know how this ends. But one of the things I said earlier, although this was the first novel that Stephen King published, it wasn't the first novel he wrote. It was actually the fourth, might have been the fifth actually. He at least started 2 more novels in college, finished one, and then the third I think he finished later on. Anyway, long story short, he gets Carrie published several years later. He started it as a short story. He wasn't interested. He threw those pages in his wastebasket. Then his wife found those discarded pages in the wastebasket. She encouraged him to finish, and so he came up with Carrie. Now, King has said in an interview, and I don't know if he was hyperbolizing just to make a point, but he says that before Carrie was published, he had written 2,500 pages of unpublished novels. He was publishing a lot of short stories. He was getting a lot of attention. But what's interesting about Carrie, when you look at it through the lens of, okay, this is the 4th or 5th book from a struggling writer with, I think he had 2 kids at the time, and he lived in a trailer, I think, with his wife. The structure of the book is, you've got like the typical omniscient third-person Stephen King narrative of the story that as it unfolds. But spliced into the narrative are these excerpts of news articles that Stephen King has written about the events that take place in the book. excerpts of books from Harvard historians, pages from the transcripts of the White Commission, I think it was called, spliced into the narrative of what many might have considered this very pulp novel are these documents are made to be written in the voice of very esteemed people, academics, politicians, etc. Also, keep in mind that Carrie, her superpower, by the way, is telekinesis, which is abbreviated as TK throughout the book. Well, when you're a writer, storytelling is a matter of moving things with your mind, just like telekinesis. So we have that parallel of Stephen King actually, in a way, being Carrie, because he's conducting all these things with his head. All the things that happen in the book, he's moving them with his mind. Also, spliced within this pulpy narrative, we have documents of repute, wherein academics, politicians, historians are taking a very close look at the events of Carrie's life and the events that are chronicled in this novel. So in a way, you can look at Carrie as an exercise of Stephen King's frustrations as a young writer, where he himself is the telekinetic protagonist of the story, and he is envisioning, in sort of this pipe dream, what it would be like to have very highbrow people taking him very seriously, taking very seriously the events that he has orchestrated with his mind, which for Carrie was the destruction of her small town, and with King himself is the construction of this novel. So, my overall impression of Carrie is that it's really, really, really good. It's just outstanding. It's a delight. It's really fast. It's really creative. Also, I'm glad to say way better than I remember it being when I first read it in middle school. This is the copy that I had in middle school, so it's about 12 years old, and I actually found my old bookmark in it, which says, too cool to do drugs. Are you too cool to do drugs? Let me know in the comments. So yeah, that's my review, discussion, assessment of Carrie. If you have any thoughts on the book, let me know in the comments. If you agree, disagree, if you think I'm totally out in left field, let me know. Next week, I intend to go on to Salem's Lot and then The Shining after that. So thanks for tuning in, and constant reader, I will see you next time.